The sky wasn't falling, but it might as well have been. One minute, I was sipping my morning coffee, watching the sunrise paint the clouds in shades of orange and pink. The next, a shadow fell over our small town, so vast and sudden it felt like a solar eclipse. But there was no moon. There was only it. A colossal, shimmering disk hanging silently in the morning air, blotting out the sun. My coffee cup slipped from my hand, shattering on the kitchen floor. I didn't even notice. My eyes were glued to the impossible shape in the sky. Panic began to bubble in the streets. I could hear car horns blaring, distant shouts, the beginning of chaos. My first instinct was to run, to hide, to do what every disaster movie had taught me. But I was frozen, a statue of pure disbelief. It was my daughter, Lily, who broke the spell. She was only 7, but she had a bravery I could only dream of. She tugged on my sleeve, her eyes wide, not with fear, but with wonder. "Dad," she whispered, her voice trembling with excitement, "are they here?" She didn't need to say who they were. We both knew. The visitors we'd only ever read about in books or seen in movies. Aliens. The ship didn't make a sound. It just hovered, a silent giant watching over us. Then a beam of soft, white light descended from its center, touching down in the middle of Miller's Field, just on the edge of town. It wasn't a destructive laser beam or a tractor beam. It was more like an invitation, a gentle, glowing pathway. Against every rational thought in my head, I took Lily's hand. "Stay close to me," I said, my own voice a stranger to my ears. We walked out the front door, joining a small, hesitant crowd of neighbors, all drawn by the same magnetic curiosity. We moved as one, a silent procession towards the light. The usual town sounds were gone, replaced by a profound, humming silence that seemed to emanate from the ship. When we reached the edge of the field, we stopped. The light pulsed softly, waiting. No one dared to step into it. The air crackled with a mixture of terror and awe. What would happen? Would we be disintegrated, abducted, studied like insects? Then a figure appeared in the light. It wasn't a little green man or a monstrous bug. It was tall and slender, almost human in shape, but it seemed to be made of liquid starlight, constantly shifting and flowing. It had no discernible face, yet I felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over me. It felt like it was looking right at me, right into me. The being raised a long, graceful arm. It didn't speak with a voice, but a message flooded my mind, clear as a bell. The message wasn't in English or any language I knew, yet I understood it perfectly. It said, "Do not be afraid. We mean you no harm. We have come to learn." Slowly, cautiously, a few people stepped forward, including our town's mayor. A brave woman named Miss Albright. She walked right up to the edge of the light, her hands held up in a gesture of peace. The star being lowered its arm and seemed to bow. What happened next was the most extraordinary thing I have ever witnessed. More figures emerged from the light, each one unique. Some were short and round, glowing with a warm orange light. Others were like elegant, crystalline trees, their branches chiming with a melody that made my heart ache with a strange, beautiful sadness. They didn't have weapons. They carried glowing orbs and strange, intricate instruments. They began to interact with us. One of the crystalline beings gently touched a wilting rose in Mrs. Gable's garden, and it bloomed instantly, more vibrant than ever before. A small, glowing orb floated over to a group of children, and it projected shimmering, holographic images of distant galaxies and swirling nebulas. The children, including Lily, laughed and reached out to touch the stars. The fear that had gripped the town melted away, replaced by an incredible, shared sense of wonder. These beings weren't invaders. They were explorers, scientists, artists. They communicated through shared thoughts and feelings, showing us images of their world with two suns, floating islands and rivers of light. They wanted to understand us, our art, our music, our emotions. I watched as one of the star beings approached Old Man Hemlock, a grumpy man who rarely spoke to anyone. The being simply stood before him, and I saw tears well up in Mr. Hemlock's eyes. I don't know what they shared, but for the first time in years, I saw him smile. They showed us their technology, not as weapons, but as tools for creation. They demonstrated how they could purify water with a simple, handheld device. They showed us how they grew food from light itself. It wasn't magic. It was just science, far beyond our own. Lily was fearless. She walked right up to one of the beings, the tall, starlight one that had first appeared. She held out her worn teddy bear. "This is Barnaby," she said aloud, her voice clear and proud. The being leaned down, and for a moment its starry hand rested above the bear. I felt a wave of pure affection, of understanding. The alien knew that this wasn't just a toy. It was a friend, a comfort. It was a symbol of love. The day passed in a dream. We shared our world with them, and they shared a glimpse of theirs with us. There was no conflict, no misunderstanding. There was only a quiet, respectful exchange. They learned about our love for our families, our joy in music, our sadness, our hope. And we learned that we are not alone in the universe, and that the vast emptiness of space is actually filled with endless wonders. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in the same colors I'd seen that morning, the beings began to gather back towards the beam of light. The message came into our minds once more. "Thank you. We will remember you." Lily ran to me and hugged me tight. "Are they leaving, Dad?" she asked, her voice quiet. I think so, sweetie, I said, my own throat tight with emotion. One by one, the visitors stepped back into the light and vanished. The tall starlight being was the last to go. It turned, and I felt that sense of a gaze on me one last time. It wasn't a goodbye. It felt like a see you later. Then it too was gone. The beam of light retracted, and the colossal ship began to ascend. Silently, effortlessly, it rose into the twilight sky. It grew smaller and smaller until it was just another star among the thousands. And then it was gone. The town was quiet for a long moment. We all stood there, looking up at the empty sky. Then someone started to clap. Soon, the whole town was applauding, cheering, hugging each other. We weren't just neighbors anymore. We were people who had shared something impossible. The world would never be the same. The news would explode, governments would scramble, and everything we thought we knew would be questioned. But for us, in our small town, something more personal had happened. We had met the aliens, and they were not monsters. They were friends. That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, she looked up at me, her eyes shining. "Dad," she said, "do you think they'll come back?" I looked out her window at the starry night sky. "I don't know," I answered truthfully. "But I think we'll be ready for them when they do." The day we met the aliens wasn't a day of invasion or war. It was the day the universe opened up and said, "Hello." And we, in our own small way, had said hello right back. And that changed everything. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story and want to improve your English with more, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.